Hello, everybody. Welcome to Law and Society. And today we're going to talk about Donald Trump's stochastic terrorism. And this is a re up because, I've talked many times about Donald Trump's uh, terrorism, Donald Trump's insightful rhetoric, and I've warned many times about it. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just getting started. And I want to remind everybody that currently the United States is going through a time of social volatility. And I want everybody to remain vigilant, to not engage in overtly aggressive conduct, not confront people who have different political views than ours. If we can have a civil conversation, that is more than uh, you know needed at this time. But short of a civil conversation, we need to be careful of our surroundings. So, and why do I say that? Because it doesn't just extend to political elites. Because just a couple of days ago, a lady by the name of Lori Carlton, who was the owner of a clothing and accessory shop by the name of Magpie in California, was shot dead because of a fight that she had with somebody, or an argument that she had with somebody over a pride flag that she flew in her store. Now she is an LGBTQ plus ally, married to the same person for several years, and has several children, and is also a grandmother, or was. It's horrific. And I want to throw us back to uh, Officer Brian Sicknick and the four other officers who died because of the January 6th insurrection. I want to remind you about Paul Pelosi, who was hit in the head with a hammer by David DePape, who was inflamed by MAGA rhetoric. And I want you to remember people like David DePape, Solomon Pena, who, after losing an election, shot up his political opponent's house; Craig Robertson, who recently was shot and killed in a firefight with the FBI after he made threatening comments and doubled down on it when he was asked by the FBI. And when the FBI went to his house, he confronted them with guns. There was a gunfight and he lost. And then there's Abigail Shry, who most recently left a threatening message in Judge Tanya Chutkin's voicemail, uh, talking in vile language and saying that threatening to kill Judge Chutkin. And let's also not forget about Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a police officer doing their job while Ashley Babbitt was trying to break into a restricted section of the United States Congress because she was incited by Donald Trump's lies. All these people are connected, sadly, by Donald Trump. And the names of the people that I took who have uh, been hurt, you know, Paul Pelosi, Lori Carlton, who recently passed away, was shot because of her stance with the LGBT community. The 5 police officers who died as a consequence of January 6th. All these people didn't have to die if MAGA and Donald Trump did not ratchet up the rhetoric and the violent rhetoric, so much so that people who can't tell the difference between political speech and outright violence would take up the cause and the violence. Because each of these people, David DePape, Solomon Pena, Craig Robertson, Abigail Shry, Ashley Babbitt, they were all of them incited by the lawlessness of Donald Trump. And that includes, and I don't know the names of these people, but the attacks on FBI officers, remember, with the guy with the nail gun. Then there are the barricades that were rammed soon after January 6th insurrection. And then there is this despite this, this mayhem that has sort of gripped our nation. At a time of peace, people like this just don't die for specific reasons like homophobia or disinformation of massive nature like election fraud that would incite people who would be otherwise patriotic people into committing random acts of violence, seemingly random acts of violence. They are not lone wolves and random acts of violence because they are strung together by the one thread, which is Donald Trump and MAGA's rhetoric. And it is such a sad day in American history when you have one of the big political parties become a PR engine for the person who has been coined by many experts to be a clear and present danger to American democracy, and who is currently being indicted for mishandling of classified documents, the highest level of classified documents. So, it is all connected to Donald Trump's rhetoric. These people carrying out these acts, and no court of law, no judge has imposed any sort of restrictions on Donald Trump until Judge McAfee, not Judge Fani Willis filed just yesterday the conditions of bond in which there are restrictions on what Donald Trump can and cannot say about the speech. Judge Chutkan, even when she issued the protective order on discovery materials, didn't address the fact that Donald Trump had violated the conditions of bond set by the magistrate who had arraigned him in the January 6th case. So I hope that Judge Chutkan also addresses these issues. I hope that Judge Chutkan addresses the issue of Abigail Shry and whether that was violating, inciting people like her with speech by talking about judges and prosecutors and grand jurors who are part of the investigations. Donald Trump is poisoning the jury pool. Donald Trump is attacking the foundations of our democracy by attacking these judges, by sending out these messages that get people so riled up that they would go out and kill for the cause, for the neoconservative agenda, which is nothing but disinformation, distraction, denial, and delay. That's all that they are capable of. They don't have a platform, it's just retribution. So I hope there are still Republicans left who have a spine, who can stand up. And I'm looking forward to the GOP debate on Wednesday. My eyes are on Chris Christie to see if they can stay on message, have some policy positions to at least put up a respectable front in the 2024 election. Donald Trump has said he's not going to attend, but let me just tell you, rehash, that Donald Trump is constitutionally disqualified from running for elected office in the United States under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment because he engaged in insurrection and provided aid and comfort to insurrectionists. So with that, I want you to remain vigilant. I want you to be friendly, but don't forcefully engage in MAGA fights. There's no need to inflame the courts and the DOJ. They're doing their job. And we have to still keep being patient, So with that, I'd like to close the substantive section of it. If you are new here, please like and subscribe and share. Deb, I guess you're awake. Good morning, my angel. And let me see what you've written. Beware of the undercurrent of violence among us, fueled by the angry MAGA cult. Recognize a cult for what it is. It has turned into a cult because there was a recent poll in which Republicans who would vote for Trump would believe Trump 71% of the time, which was the most they would believe anybody, including their friends and family and religious leaders. I don't know if Jesus came from heaven and God came down and, you know, stood in front of them, whether they would still believe in Donald Trump or not. But they should know that the process of judicial of jurisprudence of the judicial process, the criminal process, in the laws of men and women, these are the laws that stick. And you have to uh, keep in mind that, you know, we don't want to get into how influential he is with the Republican voters who are going to vote for him. That's kind of like a, you know, given. Let's look at how much we can expand the vote for keeping Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office. And Republicans have a responsibility to find a way to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't get the nomination. So far, that doesn't seem to be panning out. And secretaries of state, and other officers in the various states have a responsibility under the Constitution of the United States, the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, to enforce that clause and not allow Donald Trump on the ballots to begin with. If states allow him on the ballots, there will be organizations and people's coalitions who will sue to enforce the disqualification clause. And that's effectively how Crew, Citizens for Ethics, got Coy Griffin disqualified in New Mexico. And many scholars now across the political spectrum have come out and said that, what was I saying? I forget. I'm going to stop here because I've lost my train of thought. So please check out my other videos. I lose my train of thought if I go off topic, and I need to stay on topic. That's a lesson for me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you can't be nice about it, just don't say anything. You know, you're more than welcome to give me a down saying that you don't like my content, which is perfectly fine with me. I want to, and this is my cheat sheet here. I want to see if I remember something, if I've forgotten something. So yeah, we're looking forward to the 28th when we have Judge Chutkin's hearing to set the trial date. Oh, Judge Cannon is, up to her antics, and Donald Trump has moved in that court for some reason, showing that the prosecution isn't doing what it's saying. So some sort of a ruckus is going on over there, but I'm not paying attention too much to that because it's overwhelming, and I'm paying attention to the January 6th and the Georgia case, because those two cases have wrangled in the people who have thus far been not held accountable for their subversion. And to the naked eye, to the layperson, it is sedition, but Jack Smith didn't find the evidence enough to reach the burden that you would need to be able to win the case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. There, all those hurdles are there: the preponderance of the evidence, and then there's another standard. There's probable cause, and then there's reasonable suspicion. But beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest, and I would think that that's the measure by which Jack Smith is bringing the charges. Can he successfully litigate the case in that situation where it is the harshest environment for him, like Judge Cannon's court? So with that, thank you for being here. If you're new, you can just rewind back. I wanted to send out a warning today about Donald Trump's terrorism and how that sort of terrorism translates into seemingly random acts of lone wolf violence, but they're not random acts of lone wolf violence because they're strung by the cult of MAGA and strung together by Donald Trump and his violent rhetoric. And let's see what the judge says in Georgia about the bond conditions, including the $200,000 bond. but also the other conditions restricting his speech regarding the Georgia case. I hope that Judge Chutkan also keeps that in mind. So with that, thank you and take care.